Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Inside Nebraska podcast. He's Steve Marik. I'm Zack Carpenter, and today we're talking assistant, Steve. Matt Rhule is starting to fill out his staff pretty quickly, as we expected, hitting the ground running in Lincoln, filling out that coaching staff. 10 full-time assistants and a head strength coach are the main positions. He has six of those 11 positions filled, five of the on-field roles, and a head strength coach. Just running through these. By the time you're watching this, listening to this, you'll already know the names. But going from top to bottom, obviously Matt Rhule is the head coach, and then going offense, you got Marcus Satterfield as the offensive coordinator, and EJ Barthel as the running backs coach, Terrence Knighton as the defensive line coach, Evan Cooper is the secondary coach, so not defensive backs, not cornerbacks or safeties, just encapsulating secondary coach. Ed Foley as the special teams coordinator, and Corey Campbell as the head football strength and conditioning coach. So 6 names there, 6 official titles. What stands out? What are your just initial thoughts about that staff?
The connections. Everybody's got a connection to Matt Rhule, and that's one thing that Matt said in his introductory press conference was he's gonna be hiring assistants. A lot of them are gonna be young, and if you look at the guys who are official right now, those 6 names, yeah, they're pretty young. And Matt Rhule said in his press conference that that's exactly what he wants. He wants young guys who are going to go on the road and see 6, 7, 8 different kids on recruiting visits and grind their way to the top and make something out of their careers. And to tell you the truth, that's music to my ears. I really like that kind of stance that he's taking with his assistants. So I mean, looking at it from top to bottom right now, I know there's a lot of unofficialness going on right now, but for the official ones, it's not a staff that maybe blows you away right away, but I think it's solid top to bottom. We can get into it more and we will, but I'm curious on your thoughts. To me, at least, it's not like a blow you away staff, but it's solid for in Matt Rhule's transition year. He wants to be surrounded by guys he knows and trusts and has worked with before, and I totally understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the ordinary for a head coach, especially a new head coach in a new spot, to hire people he's worked with before, people he trusts and knows their process and knows the type of grinders they are. And Matt Rhule is known as a grinder. I think he was on the Peter Schrager podcast. I can't remember the title, but it was an interview with Peter Schrager on his podcast talking about sort of he said one of the mistakes I probably made in the NFL was surrounding myself with coaches who I just didn't connect with, and I think there was a work ethic disconnect there where he was probably asking, I guess, too much from NFL coaches. When the college coaching game, it's a grind, and Rhule has been known to have that type of staff in place at Temple and at Baylor. So he's surrounding himself with familiarity, comfortability, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And again, like you said, there's no star names on this list. Marcus Satterfield is the one, obviously, that stands out above the rest as far as name recognition. But you look at the other guys, and it's lesser known coaches. But if you're not a coordinator, or if your name isn't Brian Hartline, like most people across college football aren't going to have name recognition as assistant coaches. But what he's done here is, like you said, he's hiring energetic young guys who are hungry to prove themselves at this level, and hungry to prove themselves on the recruiting trail, build relationships, get out there. And that's 1A or 1B that you need at Nebraska, is someone who's going to be a willing recruiter and can combine that with on-field development.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the early names, the young names, Terrence Knighton, pot roast, right? He's not too detached from his NFL playing days. So I just think that would be such an awesome recruiting tool for a guy like Coach Knighton to go into a living room and tell 4 or 5 star recruits, parents and that recruit, like, hey, I can teach you. I was just doing this a couple years ago, right? I can teach you how to play defensive line, and I can teach you the hand techniques. I can show you how to do this because I lived it. I did that. So I'm just kind of curious how this staff is going to continue to come together. There's some spots that need to be filled, obviously, but yeah, they're young, they're energetic. And then you got like a old vet like Foley.
Who sounds
Ed Foley. Yeah. I mean, that guy just screams Temple tough, right? He's gone viral a couple of times for how I guess intense, I guess, is a way of doing it.
No BS type of
No,
guy.
yeah, he's all football. That guy, he's funny. He's fun to talk football with. I'm excited to maybe ask him some questions and talk ball with Ed Foley. But yeah, special teams quarter Ed Foley. So yeah, we can start getting into some of these. Rambling right now, but yeah, it's an energetic new staff that I think is gonna maybe impress some people. More than maybe looking at them and it's not really blowing you away name wise, but I think they could impress you.
Yeah, I mean, Ed Foley is going to be your dream in a press conference setting because you're going to be able to ask him ball questions. It's going to be no nonsense to the point ball questions. And Ed Foley's 55. He's the elder statesman on the staff. You got Marcus Satterfield at 46, and then from there, the rest of the guys on the staff right now are 37 or younger. So like some youth and hunger there. But wanted to highlight a few of these guys, not necessarily go through extensively all of them, but just a few of them as we're sitting here today on Thursday night when we're recording this. You guys will be watching, listening to this Friday. But starting with Marcus Satterfield, he was Rhule's offensive coordinator at Temple, and he's assistant coach on his Baylor staff, the offensive line coach for a year with the Carolina Panthers before he moved on to his most recent role as the South Carolina offensive coordinator. And South Carolina, their offense, it struggled a lot in his first season. You get into the quarterback situation in a second that he was dealing with, but he was semi on the hot seat going into year two. I know I covered South Carolina for a few months for Rivals back in the spring, and there was a fan base sort of not clamoring for him to be let go, but just not happy with him. And then he was largely responsible, him and Shane Beamer, for bringing in Spencer Rattler in the transfer portal. And then the offense still struggled this year. It was hovering around 20.7, I think, 20.5 points per game, and 7 of their SEC games. But these last 2 games against Tennessee and then ACC opponent Clemson, the offense exploded for 63 points in a win over Tennessee, and then 31 in a win over a really good Clemson defense. So there's some ups and downs there, maybe some hot and cold, but what are your overarching thoughts about the Satterfield hire and what he brings to the table?
Yeah, so like you said earlier, just a longtime Rhule assistant. They first coached together in Western Carolina when Satterfield was a receivers coach in 2005. And then once Rhule got the Temple head coaching job, Satterfield was his offensive coordinator from 2013 to 2015. And then again, after he got fired from Texas Tech in his second season after only winning 1 game. But yeah, then he went on to Baylor and then the Carolina Panthers as an assistant offensive line coach. But yeah, so let's get in a little bit to I think he was kind of dealt a really bad hand in his first season at South Carolina, especially at the most important position in football, the quarterback position. So going into his first season as offensive coordinator, Luke Doty, who was the projected starter, great athlete, terrific athlete, he gets injured in the preseason and is not ready to start the season. They go into panic mode and have to transition Zeb Nolan, the former Iowa State, North Dakota State quarterback who was entering that program as a grad assistant coach. They turn him into, they ask him, hey, do you have any eligibility left? And Zeb's like, yeah, I got 1 year left. So they turn Zeb Nolan, the grad assistant coach, to a player again and have him start the season. And I think 3 different quarterbacks attempted to pass that season, 2021 for South Carolina. There was just absolutely no consistency, no rhythm at the quarterback situation. And honestly, the numbers just kind of, you aren't shocked when you hear the numbers. They only scored 22.6 points per game. That was only better than Vanderbilt in the SEC, and that ranked 104th nationally. They averaged in 2021 5.3 yards per play, which was 96th nationally. Again, only better in the conference than Vanderbilt. You never want to be by Vanderbilt offensively in any sort of stat. And then obviously they needed to hit the transfer portal for this season, and they did that. They brought in, like you said, Spencer Rattler and his tight end from Oklahoma, Austin Stogner, and the offense got better, but it's still kind of herky jerky. I'm trying to go back and watch some games from South Carolina. It was not smooth at all outside of these last two games for sure, but they still got that scoring average bumped it up to 31.7 points per game. And they got that yards per play up to over 6, which is 45th best in the nation. So there was a big jump from 2021, 2022 with Marcus Satterfield. But yeah, they huddle sometimes. It's a pro style offense. Listening to some of the analysts when I'm watching these games, I think it was a little tough for Spencer Rattler coming from maybe like a one read offense, spread offense at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, where if you see something, you just make a decision and you go another way. With Marcus Satterfield, from what I've read up and watched, it's more of a progression. The quarterback needs to, the X might be on the left side, and at Oklahoma there was only a left and right receiver, but at South Carolina, Spencer had to kind of learn that the X can motion over and the Y can be over there and the Z can be over there and things like that. So it's just maybe more detailed than what Spencer came from at Oklahoma and the Lincoln Riley offense. So just more progression reads and things like that, and maybe a bit more complicated than Spencer was maybe ready to do at the beginning of this season to hit the ground running. But these last two games though, it looked a lot better, I guess, than it did the first however many games.
Yeah, and I mean, we're aware of the rumblings that
Yep.
Satterfield may or may not have been calling the plays for those two games. I mean, I've been told that by multiple people, not a confirmed fact, just that there are rumblings that he may or may not have been calling all the plays, or maybe not all of the plays, or maybe had extra input from another staff member. So we are aware of that. And on top of that is just he's known. Satterfield was known this season from people in South Carolina circles, media that covers the team, and fans, that he had a propensity to not adjust quickly enough and not simplify the offense quite enough for his quarterback, especially for Spencer Rattler this year. I mean, you laid out all the points right there.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably a reason why it took longer for him to sort of hit his stride here late in the season. Just from some of the stuff I know, the New Orleans Saints offense is one of the teams that they really Satterfield took some of his concepts from, or inspirations from, at least in some of the things that they do. Like I said in a story that went up Monday, sort of mixed feelings is the proverbial phrase around the Satterfield hire. Just, he could be hot or cold. There is potential there for him to be leading a really strong offense, but I think some of those things that we hit on, simplifying the offense, but also if you're gonna have Matt Rhule, if you're gonna be working with him, I think that could also help with collaboration. There's that word, fun collaboration. It's been a while since we heard that one.
Yeah, it has.
It could be a collaboration. Again, just want to hit on this. Jake Peets, current Los Angeles Rams offensive assistant. He's former Nebraska walk-on, former Nebraska high school star. He's reported to be coming on the Nebraska staff as the quarterback's coach, potentially as the co-offensive coordinator, but that's not confirmed yet. That was not one of the official hires and titles that Nebraska released today. That's just reported right now. And I don't know if there would be a co-offensive coordinator title, maybe in the cards, but the way that they would do that is, I think right now the tight ends coach was not in Satterfield's official title. It was just offensive coordinator, but could potentially see an OC tight end coach combo there that you don't really see that often. Kevin Wilson at Ohio State, offensive coordinator, tight ends coach, but it's not the norm. Usually they're standalone OC or OC quarterbacks coach combination, but you're combining two positions there. That's how you potentially get another standalone quarterbacks coach in there. But enough about Satterfield. Talked about him plenty. I think it warrants it. I mean, he is the OC. He's one of only three coordinators named right now, along with Ed Foley at special teams. Next one I want to talk about, just going down the list, is EJ Barthel at UConn. And I mean, I know fans, a lot of times they'll see the name associated with it, UConn. Oh, okay. Just because UConn's been a really dormant program for so long, but they've had a resurgence under Jim Mora. And one of the telling things, there's the dichotomy of the Satterfield hire where the South Carolina contingent, if you look on social media or fan reaction, is all right, good, like that's fine. Like they weren't too beat up about it. And EJ Barthel, when that was reported by Nate Klaus over at our site inside Nebraska, that he was going to be taking the job at Nebraska, it was like, well, damn, like we lost a good one. And he had running backs. He had at least one of his running backs publicly comment like, "Thank you so much, like you've earned this." No animosity there. He's taken a step up. I know he has a reputation as being one of those young, energetic recruiters who's very good at building relationships and combining that with the on-field development. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on Barthel. I mean, it's one of the biggest positions on the staff. He's going to be replacing Brian Applewhite, who was another one of the most reputable staff members from this previous Nebraska staff.
Yeah, he I agree with you whenever you kind of say UConn, people just kind of maybe turn their nose up, on the football field. They haven't been very good recently, and I get that. But look, he's his running backs at UConn have said glowing, raving reviews about him on social media, like you said, and that's good enough for me. Honestly, he looks like a young, energetic dude, just like Matt Rhule said that he wanted in his introductory press conference. And look, Brian Applewhite was really good at his job. He's a heck of a recruiter, developer, but sometimes just eras come to the end. Brian Applewhite isn't going to be on the staff anymore, so Matt Rhule deserves to have his staff and do it how he sees fit. And if it's EJ Barthel, I like what I see right now. Coaching UConn, he had some NFL experience for 2 years as an assistant, played the position at Rutgers. So I think it's good. He's got a lot of talent to work with in Nebraska's running back room currently. Well, that could always change, obviously, as things start moving with the transfer portal. But I like EJ Barthel. I think it's good to have a young guy at that position recruiting it, especially.
Yeah, and I don't know where what your school of thought is, but it seems like Anthony Grant probably would be leaning toward coming back. I mean, that's just a good feeling. Who knows? Players are entering the transfer portal. The transfer portal doesn't open up till December 5th officially, but for schools that made a switch at head coach, they have a 30-day window to enter it. And we saw Ernest Hausman at linebacker, Dakotas Crawford receiver, Brant Banks at offensive line, and Gabe Hines at kicker all entered the transfer portal this week, Wednesday for Hines and Thursday for the other three. But Anthony Grant and then AJ Allen obviously is the elephant in the room. He's one of the top priorities. He was up there with Hausman and probably Hartzog as far as young guys, freshmen or first or second year players that are priorities to keep on this staff. So if Barthel is able to keep AJ Allen in the fold, who's I know coming off an injury, but he's going to be sought after in the transfer portal this offseason. But moving on down the line, quickly touch on Terrence Knighton, pot roast, as they call him, another fiery guy. I think once he was hired, the clip made the Twitter circles out in the Twitter streets of him kind of laying into the Carolina defensive line, or he's coming over as previously as a defensive assistant. He was working with the defensive line, especially when after Carolina let go of their previous head defensive line coach. But again, more familiarity there. He played at Temple when Matt Rhule was there, and in 2009. 08 to 2010, Matt Rhule was offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, but so Terrence Knighton was on the other side of the ball, but still there's familiarity there. And then again, on the Panthers staff, I'm not sure if there's too much that we can hit on that we haven't already, where it's just he's going to have some reputation as an NFL guy. Again, common theme of having that reputation in recruiting. That's such an important factor, is getting guys in there who you can lay confidence into recruits and transfer portal kids that we can get you the NFL. And that's what something Terrence Knighton brings to the table.
100%. 7 years in the NFL, and going from Temple to the NFL, getting drafted. I mean, still, like, Temple's a good school and everything, but I don't think it screams NFL talent. Temple does, at least in my opinion. So when a guy like Terrence Knighton, comes from Temple, makes a career 7 years in the NFL at a really tough position, defensive line, interior defensive line, like, you listen to guys like that who have been there and done that and did that in their career. So I'm intrigued a lot by Terrence Knighton, a lot, for sure. Like you said, I think it's going to go over well when he's in living rooms and convincing recruits to come to Nebraska, because, at one point he was probably an underrated guy who signed with Temple and just made something of himself and got drafted and played 7 seasons in the NFL. That's awesome.
Yeah. And final note was just on Knighton was, in case you missed it, on Wednesday, there was hope, optimism that potentially Matt Rhule would be able to lure Elijah Robinson, defensive line coach at Texas A&M, also the associate head coach or assistant head coach. I think it's assistant head coach and run game coordinator at Texas A&M, to get him over to Nebraska. And I reported on Wednesday that Robinson, he's not going to be taking any position at Nebraska. He was offered a position and declined it and elected to stay at Texas A&M, or maybe he goes elsewhere. But the status right now is that he's not going to be joining Nebraska's staff. And I don't know what the position was that he was offered, whether it was a defensive coordinator. I assume there would be a defensive coordinator title, but I don't know that for sure, to get him to jump, to try and entice him to make that jump. So Terrence Knighton, we weren't certain whether he was head defensive line coach or he's going to be assistant defensive line coach, but that is official, head defensive line coach. They have a big presence there, literally a big bodied presence, because he's still a big guy and commanding voice to be in that locker room. Just to quickly hit on Ed Foley and Corey Campbell. Ed Foley, like we said, fiery guy. It's no nonsense. Just to reiterate that again, coming over with pro credentials. Same thing with Corey Campbell, assistant strength coach under Jeremy Scott, head strength coach for the Panthers. And this is his first shot at not his first shot, his next shot at the head job. He was the head strength coach at Baylor after Jeremy Scott left to Carolina with Rhule, and he had a good reputation over there. And another picture made the rounds was Corey Campbell walking around shirtless, looking like Apollo Creed's dad, because he's built. I mean, what I'm most interested in is something that we may not find out all the details on, is the strength and conditioning program at Nebraska. I mean, across college football, those are always kept so secretive. I feel like it's nuclear launch codes, but they needed a facelift. I think we always kind of mention it at the end of podcasts or end of analysis stories of how badly the overhaul was needed at Nebraska in that department. But we might mention it sort of on the fly or at the end, even though it's at the core of everything they do. I mean, a college player spends more time with the strength coach than any other coach on the staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a secret. Nebraska has been getting pushed around at the most important part of a football field, the line of scrimmage, for years now. And that just obviously needs to change. And when Matt Rhule is talking the culture and how he grows up and how he grew up as a coach and what he wants to do as a head coach, it all revolves around winning the line of scrimmage. It's incredibly important to start building the offensive line and defensive line. And the first thing that needs to change at Nebraska is the strength and conditioning program. So, with Corey in the hell, that I'm really excited to see the kind of bodies that he builds, and kind of the plan, I guess, of what they want the offensive line and defensive line to look at Nebraska. Previously, with the previous staff here with the Huskers, it's been just gigantic bodies. But sometimes size in football is great, but sometimes you need other things. You need more athletic physiques. Maybe you need quicker moving body parts sometimes, and strength and conditioning plays a factor. What's that?
Flexibility, stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are things that I think Nebraska has struggled with recently. So I think a change was needed, and a change happened. And, with Corey, he doesn't have a ton of experience, I don't think. But, this is like we said earlier, young, hungry guys looking to make a name for themselves. I just like that, because I know these guys have drive. Everybody from all walks of life, they want to make a name for themselves and keep working hard and put their head down and start doing good work. And I think Corey's a guy like that. And I'm excited to see what he does with strength and conditioning program.
Makes sense that you would have that mentality, because that's what you are. You felt like you were talking about yourself in the third person there almost, and you didn't even realize.
I think everybody has a story like that. They work their butt off to get to a certain point in their careers, and now that they've here, they want to make do and I guess impress somebody that got them that job and do good work. And yeah, I think everybody kind of has that story somewhere in their life.
You're impressing me so far, Steve. You've been doing a good job. You've been doing an awesome job since middle of July when you started. But yeah,
thanks, boss.
I mean, there's Corey Campbell. I mean, I think it's like the most intriguing storyline of this offseason is what he does in the weight room, what he does with that. Yeah. And it's also the storyline that we may not know or hear like anything about. Of course, that's how it is. But one last person before we get out of here is the last one to touch on. And that's Evan Cooper, the secondary coach, and kind of cornering you with this question. But the most interesting part about that, and kind of why I want to save him for last, is he's listed as secondary coach. And one of the things that Greg Smith, our senior recruiting analyst, and myself have talked about in fall camp and during the season is it's interesting that Travis Fisher, the former defensive backs coach who was let go from the previous staff, he had the philosophy of cornerbacks and safeties, coaching them together, right? Like that the philosophies and techniques of training them weren't all that different. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. And second, like how things might be similar or different. It's hard to know right now at this point without talking to these guys, but just curious if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, when Scott Frost was around and Eric Shenander, they had Travis Fisher doing both corners and safeties, and when Mickey Joseph took over for the interim and elevated Bill Bush to defensive coordinator, that seemed like almost the very first thing that they changed. And Mickey was saying, like, you look across the NFL and there's not one position coach for the defensive backfield, because you only have two eyes and you're looking at four dudes back there and the defensive backfield. Sometimes it's just better to key it and have them be either the corners coach or the safeties coach. So right now I'm interested to see if Evan Cooper is just going to be coaching corners only or safeties only, or all four of them back there, because that just leads me back to Bill Bush and the excellent job that he did as the interim DC. He split the reps up basically and on the coaching side, and had Travis Fisher just focusing on corners, and Bush was taking safeties, I think. So I'm really interested in that myself. It makes sense to divvy it up, in my opinion, just because I agree with what Mickey was saying, that it was harder for, it might be just a little difficult for one guy to keep eyes on four back there, because and really they're kind of different. They are different positions, with being a corner and a safety. So yeah, I think if I were the head coach, I'd maybe think about divvying it up and having a corners coach and a safeties coach, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's just another intriguing part of the roster construction, the coaching staff construction. And one of the main, I mean, there's 5 spots left, full-time spots. Let me make sure I have that right. You got receivers coach, offensive line coach, defensive coordinator, linebackers. So 4 quarterbacks. Looks like it's filled, but it can include that in there since it's not official yet. We'll see what happens with the tight ends because again, Satterfield's reported to be have a tight ends coach title, but defensive coordinator obviously remains the number one opening, along with, I guess you could call that an offensive line 1A and 1B. To see what happens with that situation. You brought up a good point. I wonder if the defensive coordinator comes in and has what his background is position wise. If he maybe has experience coaching safeties, then Cooper can focus solely on corners, or vice versa, or what happens there. We'll know in the coming days. Maybe by the time you're listening to this tomorrow, we might already know, with the way that Rhule's been fast tracking this staff as he should, and is a good strategy. And then just the linebackers, we were talking about this earlier, like, are they going to have an inside linebackers coach and an outside linebackers coach? They're going to combine them, then have some sort of star-studded guy, proven linebackers coach in there. We don't know yet, but that's one of the most fun parts about the off season. Something crazy happens every day. We plan to record this like almost 2 hours before, and then transfer portal stuff happened. I think we got 90 minutes. We got like a 90-minute window where nothing was happening today. And it's like, oh, okay, can relax a little bit. And then nope, transfer portal is alive and well. So any last thoughts, quick thoughts before we get out of here, Steve?
Yeah, one last dumb thought that doesn't matter, but I think about is, are they going to have an edge position? Because Nebraska on the online roster, they made the change from outside linebackers to edges. So I don't know. I'm interested in things that nobody cares about, and if they're going to call a certain position something. I'm always interested in that. Is it going to be an edge? Is it going to be an outside linebacker? Is it going to be a defensive end? I don't know. Tune in. We'll find out.
I hope they change it back to defensive end just for our sake.
Sometimes it's easier just to do that. Yeah.
Like, I'd rather write DE Garrett Nelson than edge Garrett Nelson for some reason. Like, just rolls off the tongue and like in my head better when it's DE. Maybe I'm just an old head like that. But again, questions we don't know, questions that we will be finding out answers to in the coming days, coming weeks. We'll be analyzing that as they come at Inside Nebraska, nebraska.rivals.com, and on this YouTube channel, the Inside Nebraska YouTube page. Make sure you like and subscribe, get those videos dropped right in your feed for analysis like this going forward. So once again, for Steve Marik, I'm Zack Carpenter, and we'll catch you guys again next time.